World marine fish catches dipped to 79.7 million tons in 2012 from 82.6 million in 2011, according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Safeguarding the oceans can help economic growth, curb poverty, and raise food security. West Africa waters are estimated to have the highest levels of illegal, unauthorized, and unregulated fishing in the world, representing up to 37% of the region's catch. In addition to economic losses, pirate fishing in West Africa severely compromises the food security and livelihoods of coastal communities. In order to resolve this problem, the Monitoring for Environment and Security in Africa, also known as MESA, was launched.
MESA is being funded by the EU in collaboration with AUC, and Nigeria is one of the beneficiaries among the 14 countries. In the past, we have been using different methods in managing the resources. But with MESA, we're going to use the satellites. So we're going to have a lot of data that will be coming from there, and then we'll be able to achieve a lot in sustainability of our resources.
When you collect appropriate data on the tide, the wind, the current, those in the maritime sector will require such data for their vessels to move on. The government agencies will require such information in planning for what happens at the seashore, which is the areas like your Bar Beach, your Alpha Beach. Those who go out fishing will have such information to understand the hydrodynamics of the water, to know when the sea surface will be rough and when the sea surface will be calm. So all these data is important for the various stakeholders you have with respect to the ocean. So data is very key, and whether it's the industrialists, whether it's the fisherman, whether it's the academia, and whoever has anything to do with the ocean governance requires appropriate data for appropriate stakeholder engagement.
The MESA program works to increase the information management, decision-making, and planning capacity of African continental, regional, and national institutions mandated for environment, climate, food security, and related responsibilities by enhancing access to and exploitation of relevant Earth observation applications in Africa. The project works to provide access to data gathered from satellite technology and to facilitate its applications.
What makes MESA different is that you are now collecting this data to address the issues of not only the environment, but security in terms of food security. That's why, for instance, the ECOWAS marine theme for MESA has to do with resource management. And in doing that, they are trying to look at the water quality, they are trying to look at the productivity of the water, they're trying to look at the potentials for fishing grounds and breeding grounds of fish. Then you're also providing information on the hydrodynamics of the water, which will also give indication for safety for those who have to go out to the sea. So this is the time now that you are having this special intervention using Earth observation satellites to collect this data on a continuous basis and then analyze them to give information. And this is a funded project.
Recently in Lagos, the Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research, a co-applicant institution for the MESA program, organized a target workshop on oceanographic data analysis as part of events lined up for the implementation of the recently approved MESA project for Nigeria.
The project is also building capacity, and that is now the native beauty of it, the capacity building of some of our members of staff in order to be able to analyze this, collate and analyze this data effectively. So at the end of the day, it is for the good of the people in the industry, and it is for the good of those of us who are also scientists.
The institute is charged with the responsibilities to conduct research into the rational exploitation of marine resources and conservation for sustainable development and healthy marine environment. The data produced is tailored to citizens' needs, that is, monitoring the water level and flow rate of key rivers used for commercial transportation, the water cycle information to help agriculture, flood and drought warnings, monitoring of the changing condition of rangelands for livestock management, tracking the depletion and/or degradation of forest resources and biodiversity, monitoring of marine pollution, fishery resources, and coastal erosion. In this regard, MESA and the data it secures has crucial impact for massive population numbers, in particular the highly vulnerable populations living in rural, forest or desert areas and areas exposed to natural hazards.
With respect to data collection in the marine environment, or what we call mid-ocean data, you need to ensure that first the data is collected with the appropriate instrument. If you're using the wrong instrument to collect data for something else, ultimately your answer will not be right. So that's number one. Then two, care must be taken to even collect the samples. There are certain samples that are collected at certain times of the day. There are certain samples that are collected at certain depths of the water. If you want to look at the water level measurements you have across our shore now, and then you go to Alpha Beach a few days back when you had the flooding, and then you take the measurements and you present that as the water level measurements you have for our beach, naturally you will be given the wrong impression as to the water level measurement. So you must understand the issues that have to do with the spatial and temporal nature of the data that you're collecting. That's number one. Then you will also ensure that the data can be comparable. There must be intercomparability across maybe the West African sub-region here. So it shouldn't just be that the one you collected, you used your own specific method. So you have to ensure that you use standard methods which can be compared with other international standards and other data that is collected from elsewhere. Then you must also analyze the data. The raw data will not give you any information until it is properly analyzed. And these days, apart from usual statistical analysis, we now even go into modeling using some mathematical equations to come up with the appropriate interpretation of the data. So, and that is the way. You will now use the sea surface temperature you have been collecting over the years and months, the wave heights, the tidal regimes, the currents you have. By the time you interpolate all this, you can now give meaning to it that will explain the hydrodynamics of the water and what is happening at the sea surface. Then you can give some predictions as to what goes on there.
Through improved and sustainable access by African stakeholders to Earth observation data and information across the continent, including climate change detection and scenario information, MESA allows for improved climate change effects mitigation. It supports African decision makers and planners in the design and implementation of national, regional, and continental policies and develop plans towards sustainable development, socio-economic progress, and well-being of people. It also provides improved cross-fertilization and cooperation among regions on the African continent and with European partners in the interest of synergized, efficient, and integrated information services on a continental scale.